So I'm going to wrap up and just take you through 10 industry life lessons that I've learned along the way. I probably have about 100 of them, and some of them have gotten me in trouble, but I'm going to only bore you with 10 before we finish up. Never forget the people you fly over. I was at a presentation in New York that the president of Pepsi was giving a speech, and this was one of the ones that I picked out from his speech, which I thought was terrific. And he said, all you clever people in New York, you write these wonderful ideas, and then you fly over to LA and shoot it, and you're all sort of talking to yourselves in your own communities. You all want to be clever for yourself. But the people buying the product you're selling are the people you're flying over. So don't forget Middle America. And I've always remembered that because I think it's really interesting that we always have to make sure that we're talking to the people we're actually trying to reach. Expose yourself to everything that's out there, experiences and people. I think it's important to get out of your comfort zone of what you're familiar with and what you like and be really curious. Get opinions on your work. And if they differ, don't get defensive. Try to understand why someone's not getting what you're getting. Listen, information and ideas, it's really the currency of what we do in this industry, so it's important that you expose yourself to as much as possible. And to keep an open mind. I've often seen teams, when they get an idea, they're holding onto it like their baby, and when a director comes, they're not open to his ideas, or when an actor comes, they're not open to that. An idea should get better at every single step if you're dealing with the right people, and sometimes it's hard to give up a little bit of that, but people are talented that you're working with, and sometimes you have to do that. Focus groups aren't horrible, and I want to be clear that I'm not talking about focus groups about the spot you've finished or any kind of post-testing. That's worse than horrible. I'm talking about the kind of focus groups that you go in and talk with consumers before you've landed on the idea, and you can actually get some really interesting insights and find out things that I base campaigns on, sentences that have come out of consumers' mouths because it just puts it in a completely different area than what you thought. They can be incredibly helpful. So if you get the opportunity, don't think it's a boring evening. It'll probably be anything but boring and can give you some great ideas. Creativity shouldn't be restricted to the creative. There's two ways to interpret them. One is that ideas can come from everywhere and everyone. So again, being open-minded to what might sound like a stupid idea at first, but is there a way to make that work? People who aren't associated or deeply involved in your assignment can actually have a fresh perspective, and you can use that in an interesting way. The second interpretation is to think creatively beyond, in all the areas beyond the idea itself or your TV commercial. In other words, how can you get better information? What's a creative way of finding out more information than the other guy has? How can you find out ways to really motivate yourself and inspire you to do the kind of work you want to do? How can you add creativity to a client presentation so it's a presentation he's talking about to 6 other people at his office? What can you do creatively to measure results on an ad or a website beyond the obvious? It's all there, but creativity really has to go much, much beyond just the obvious. Nobody likes a dickhead. Really, no one wants to work with a dickhead. This industry, there are a lot of big egos. Some of it's founded on real talent and some of it's not. And you know the type of person I'm talking about, the person who's always right, who's self-centered in their own brilliance and self-importance. They're all over the place. The thing that I see, and I've actually fired, I'll use the word let go because it sounds better, probably one of the best writers I've ever worked with because he was he was like a cancer in our creative department. He would demotivate everyone, no one wanted to work with him, and his idea of a good week was making the creative assistant cry. And that kind of, I'm serious, and that kind of person you just cannot work with. And what's important, and I've told so many people this, peers do not rally around this kind of person. They don't help them when they could. They wait for them to stumble, and then they watch quietly while they crash and burn. The job that we do is best done in collaboration. So keep in mind that you want to be the type of person people want to say, I would love to work with this. Have account people say, please let me work with those two, they're fantastic. Doesn't mean you're giving up anything or you're rolling over, but it's just a different kind of an attitude. It's all about playing well with others, and honestly, I would highly, highly recommend that. It's a great thing to do. It's the idea, not the execution. You guys probably know this. Sometimes it's hard to explain to some more junior teams, but don't start describing a TV spot. Describe in a couple of sentences what's the core idea. An idea has legs and breadth and infinite numbers of ways to execute it. A TV commercial has a 30-second beginning and end. So always think core idea, whether you've asked to do something specific, think of a core idea first, and that's going to be much easier for you to explain before you try to sell anything. Be thankful for small budgets. As I said earlier, Canada, we sometimes have smaller marketing budgets. It's never been a restriction on ideas. It forces you to be more creative, sometimes more strategic in how you outsmart the big brands who have bigger productions and bigger media budgets. That black and white beer campaign that I showed you for Black Label, we had 1/10 the budget of the biggest brands at the time, Molson Canadian. We had 3 times the spots because we did commercials in that campaign that were $8,000. Meanwhile, the Budweiser cliffhanger spot was $900,000. So we've done the whole range. But that campaign started outperforming. It was 400% sales increase. It was the one that that Molson Canadian started really looking after. So there was ways to do it. It also got a lot of press and talk value. Go after the accounts no one else wants. So often I get calls from creative teams wanting to tie to the agency because of a campaign that's already been established and it has a lot of buzz in the industry. So, and they gravitate towards what's cool or what's exciting right now, but there's no challenge in that. I've always found that tackling the quiet little brands that no one else wants or the categories that traditionally aren't exciting, those are the areas, those are career-making areas. If you can do something different that's going to work, it's fantastic, but don't sort of leech on to what's out there and already great because that's not how you build a career. Take a job for the right reasons, and that those reasons aren't title and it's not money, and that's a harder one to think about. Both of those will come. Go with the agency that offers you the most growth potential with what you're doing and what your abilities are. For me, that was always a much smaller agency, usually starting with 10 or 12 people, and when I left them, they were usually around 200 or 250. That's an exciting thing to watch something grow. Go where you respect the people that are your peers and are your bosses, and where they respect you and what you have to offer. The work environment is something that you spend a lot of hours in when you're in this business, and you don't want to be working for situations where you regret every minute that you're in there. So be appreciated in a place where they challenge you to reach your full potential. That's where you should be looking. Check out that they're on their websites, they're doing as much to say how well something worked as well as saying how many creative awards it worked. Because again, that'll give you a much better basis for move forward. And the last one, and this is the one that I've always lived by, we're in a business that's not brain surgery and not rocket science. We use our imaginations. We produce something today that didn't exist yesterday. You have to enjoy that. I gauge a good day at my agencies with how many laughs I've had with colleagues. And every day, honestly, has about 10 hilarious laughs, so that's a good thing. So really be thankful every day for the talent and skill sets you have because it's a career and a role that can be really, really outstanding and really rewarding. That's it. Thank you.